everybody. Hey, I'm back to work on the cowl. Going to be talking today about something that I've been discussing with Branden over at Midnight Customs, and be sure that you go and check him out. I'll have his information in the in my description, and you'll be able to check up on what he's doing. He's redoing, I think it's a 72 Chevy pickup, and just getting started. And so we've been talking a lot about different things. I wanted to show you the cardboard prototype seat that I did with my granddaughter this past weekend. She really did all the work as far as laying it out, cutting it out, and taping it up. But what I had done in order to get the layout is, in my CAD system, I have these designed as 3D models. And so I took the 3D model and I flattened it out, put it into a 2D flat blank, and plotted it out. And she took that and laid it out. She cut the drawing out, all the trim lines, the trim edges all the way around, cut everything, and then you can see the brake lines in some of these places that she used. And then down here, we just did this here along the edge of the table. But anyways, that's using CAD. And my neighbor Hugh just went by and beeped his horn. He's the one with the 69 GTX. So anyways, that's one way to make a drawing in order to do a project. I want to build these seats out of steel. There's going to be speed holes, probably 3 across here, all the way up and down, couple here, same thing, the kind of thing you see quite a bit on bomber seats. So anyways, that's one method. If you haven't seen that video, please check it out. Now let's get to this video. So now we're talking about patch panels. And you can see on this side, I've shown you this before, of the cowl, it has one rusty area down here. And it's not bad. I mean, the rest of the cowl is solid. Chad said this was probably buried in the ground, and that's why, it was sat outside for a long time. And that's probably why this side rusted. Now, I've been doing some things for the rust. I have a little test going on here. I don't know how well it's coming out in the sun, but you can see this has got fresh rust on it. And the reason for that is I used a 50-50 mix of muriatic acid and water, and just kind of shot the that mixture on the panel, and I can see that it's doing something. I'll put a grinder on it or something later today, and maybe a wire brush in the angle grinder, and check that out and see how it looks. I know it was removing some rust because my wife pointed this out to me, that I dripped a whole bunch of rust from something on the driveway. Sorry, honey. Okay, back over here. So how do I make this panel accurately? Well, there's a lot of different ways. I can just measure and look at the other side and try to duplicate it as best I can, but it's a right hand side that's damaged and the left hand side that's good. So they're opposite. Yeah, I can get those measurements and whatnot, but I'd like to have a little bit more detail than that. So on this side, I'm going to do something called a 3D shape model, and I'm going to demonstrate that for you here real quick. Okay, the tools and supplies you need to build a 3D shape model is tape. I'm using a couple of different thicknesses here. This is masking tape, something I'd mask a car off with. If you can find some nylon reinforced tape or something like that that's more durable, it'll just be more durable. It'll last longer and might be easier to work with. However, it's a lot more sticky also, and that could create some different complications, but I see a lot of guys have used that through the years. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay this tape on the surface of the part, and we're going to capture a lot of the surface of the part, because when I use it for the right hand side of the car, I want to be sure that I can cover enough area so that I get this placed correctly. Things like physical shape, things like this corner here is a really good spot to grab some surface area, and where the surface rolls over here is good as well. And then of course we're going to get these flange lines and all that we need there. I'll probably slide this way a bit and even come underneath somewhat so I can capture. There's a radius down here. You may not be able to see it right now, but I'll get the camera up closer in a little bit. And if I can capture that radius, this flange, you know, this surface along here, this surface shape around the windshield area of the cowl, I'll be able to match this up really good with that side of the car, and it'll help guide me. It's nothing that I would measure to, let's say, to get within 20 or 30 thousandths, but it's a good double check with the other things that I'll do to make this patch panel. Of course, I'll be measuring, I'll be you know, doing things like that. But this will overlay the entire side. You can overlay it like that, and it'll help give me, I'll call it like a sanity check. Make sure everything is where it belongs. The flanges and the surfaces are in the right place. It's just a really great way if you don't have a panel, patch panel or something already, and you're starting with something that's kind of unknown. I don't think I could buy a patch panel for this. So I don't even know what car it came off of. We're thinking a Dodge, but we're not really sure. So I'm on my own, and that's okay. So I'm gonna put you in, what do you call that thing that goes really fast? And time warp speed or whatever that is. And you can watch me apply the tape. Okay, just taking a second away from the time lapse, you might notice me putting triple layers of tape on these corners. And I always do that. Anywhere there's going to be some shape and I want to make sure I capture it, I'll do that. Out here I may double it, but there's a pretty subtle shape, so it's not going to be that difficult. However, I do want to capture as much of this brake line as I can, so I'll definitely double tape or triple tape along here. So look at those kind of things. But the other thing I want to point out, and I'm not going to move the camera over, but you may have saw me clipping the tape with a pair of shears. And the reason for that is when you're forming metal, you're going to get metal going around corners that wants to double up on itself. We call it double metal, you know, folding metal, that type of thing. And it just creates a mess. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting those areas and just simply folding them over to eliminate the problem with the tape. But if I was to be making this part of the panel, it gives me an idea to see where I may run into problems. And that's always helpful. So you pay attention to all that. You know, you don't just send somebody out here to tape it up for you. You should really watch what it's doing and how the tape is reacting. Because you can even see along here where there's a very slight bow, but the tape wants to gather a little bit, gather together. So it gives you an idea. So I'm going to have to, and this is what my plan is on that side. When I put the new patch panel in the bottom, I'm going to use my shrinkers to shrink along this flange and get it to the right shape. And that's how I'm going to get it to match this. I'm going to bend it, the 90-degree flange in the flat, okay? And then I'm going to use my shrinker. Now, I'll see how I feel about it when I get to actually making the metal part, but I may run it through the English wheel a few passes. It's very subtle shape. It's always a good idea to have stretch in a panel, especially a thin panel like this. Thick panels aren't as critical, you know, cross members and frame rails and things like that. They have different characteristics because the metal is so heavy. Okay, Marley wants me to throw her the ball. But you can see these gathering points, and what it does when you use tape like this is it helps you understand the material more and the issues you may have when you're building this part. Okay, I hope the sun doesn't get in our way here, but I want to show you what's going on here. All of this wrinkling in the tape is what I was talking about. And one thing to keep in mind, anytime you're forming metal, Matt the Scrap Whisperer would be another fantastic help on this. But you want to always be thinking about length of line, okay? Because the length of line will allow us to calculate a percentage of thinning that we want to stretch this panel to. Now, doing it like this, you can't necessarily get a exact percentage of stretch in a panel because it's not in a die. We're forming it all by hand, so there's going to be deviations everywhere. But around these corners and whatnot, you see these, I've cut these all because if this metal was being formed around this corner to create this flange out here, you would see a lot of metal gathering. So what they do in a die, like a flange die for an automotive stamping, out here off the trim line, they have something called an addendum. And this addendum comes out and you have to create these shapes, like shapes that will maybe you have a big ball out here, like the shape of my fist, or some what we would call metal gainers going up to this corner. And what those do is they'll come in before you wipe this flange or form this flange area, and they'll gather metal. They'll stretch it this way and they'll stretch it that way to allow the metal to go over the corner. And then you might also have a female shape here somewhere in the middle that comes out to push some of that metal down so you get a nice tight draw. There's a lot of things like that to consider, but I would say to you, if you're going to be forming metal parts, get accustomed to the term length of line, because that will help you if you want to calculate the amount of stretch. If you don't care, that's okay too. I've just seen the difference. It's how I think when I'm making a sheet metal part, and so that's what I do. I think, okay, how much stretch can I get here? Now, in the old days, and when I say the old days, I'm talking like the 70s, when I was starting with my metal forming apprenticeship and then getting into building prototype parts by hand, did a lot of things like this. And at that time, the minimum amount of stretch that we would do would be 2%, the minimum, the bare minimum. We would always want to shoot for 6 or 7%, and with some materials, we could go as high as 12%, like a deep draw material or something that allows you to make something, a panel that's deep. Maybe you have a big hood scoop on the front of your truck or something, you know, where you need a lot of metal. And the material will draw down in there really nicely without thinning out too much. And so there's ways to do it. But another way to do it is what we would do, because we didn't have computers and CAD systems and finite element analysis and all that. We just did it by knowledge. You know, we learned how the materials acted. So what we would do, it was we would put, at the time, because we were still working in SAE numbers, not metric, we would put a series of circles, 5-inch circles or 4-inch circles over the whole panel. You would just take a pair of dividers and draw a circle, everywhere that covers that panel. And what that does is, after you form the part in the die that you've created, then you can measure the length of that circle. Okay, it was 4 inches. Now it's 4 inches and 20 thousandths. Okay, something like that. And then you can say, okay, well, 4 inches, what is that? 10% or 1%? What is, you know, you could calculate it out. And so keep in mind things like that, because you don't want your panel to oil can, and that's what'll happen if you don't have any stretch. Okay, you saw me reposition the part because the way it was laying on the horses, I couldn't really get underneath it and so on and so forth. But I'm going to do this side now, just for it's easier. And I'm going to capture this whole part here because that is missing now on the side that we're repairing, the right side. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll have one coat of tape on it, and then I'll probably shut the Camaro. I wish. Now I'm gonna then I'll shut the camera off, and I'll repeat everything you just saw, and then we'll get to peeling it off the vehicle. So as I've been out here on this beautiful sunny day, September in Michigan, I'm hoping that all of the weekend days are just like this through the rest of the winter time. That might be asking a lot, but it's just what I wish, you know. Ew. Let's see here if we can do this. Okay. Fortunately for you, but unfortunately in a way, I forgot to turn the time lapse on when I finish this up, but that's okay. You get the whole point. So we're going to call this part one. We'll get this peeled off here in the next video and lay it on the other side and see what we come up with for a plan. But you'll see that these really work well, and it gives you a pretty darn solid guide to work to. You know, these beads and things like this, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but these beads that are formed in here are beads that, yeah, they add a little bit of styling, but they also take up extra metal. It's like a metal gainer in a way. So those beads, they're almost always a 1/2 inch wide and a 1/4 inch deep, and they've always been that way, and they'll probably never change. And so you see these beads on the older the older Model Ts. Now those are wide, and I think they're 3/4 wide, and but about the same depth. They have them all over those cars because look at the doors, how flat they are, and the body sides and things like that. So they use these to add some structure and to pull extra metal out of the panels. So more on that next time. Thank you for watching. Let me mention just again, Midnight Customs, Branden. Go check out his channel. He is looking for subscribers. I checked this morning, he's at 199, and he's a great guy. He is teaching himself a lot of things, like welding, but when he goes through and does a video, he has the gift of explaining things. I'm looking down at Marley because she keeps bringing me the ball and I'm kicking it to her. He has a gift of explaining things that help everybody, no matter how much experience you have. They're really helpful videos, and he's just a great, nice person. So that, and Joey Collins will be doing a giveaway in the next few days or week or so that I want to tell you about. It'll be a 500 viewer giveaway. He's at 490 at the time I made this video. So go check out Joey Collins and watch out, subscribe, and then watch out for the giveaway that he'll be doing. Okay. Appreciate everybody watching, I really do. If this is your first time watching, The Edge of Eternity, Bill Cameron is about the gospel. I do a lot of gospel type videos. I hope you'll take advantage of watching those as well. We do a Sunday night service at 5 o'clock Eastern every Sunday afternoon. My wife and I do the service, and we do it right in the garage. And it's for guys that like cars and motorcycles. That's what we like. And so that's something that's, I think, really beneficial. A lot of the car guys and bike guys join us for that, and it's always been a real good time of fellowship and people being together. We do a short sermon and talk. And so I invite you to that. Please check that out. And thanks again for watching this video today. Take care.